Thank you so much. Welcome to the Voice Over Today audio podcast. I'm your host, D. Foster III, CEO and President of Wake Up Global Networks International. I want to say thank you so much. We are your podcast with an eye on the culture, discussing relevant issues, trending topics, and we do our thorough investigative journalism. I want to say make sure you go to stay tuned to WPB Media, and have you viewed our Voice Over Now podcast, which uploads live each and every Friday. We are doing a series on I Will Not Denounce the Divine Nine and my thoughts on that. Also, I want to say we would want to hear from you on the voiceovertheglobe at gmail.com, the voiceovertheglobe at gmail.com. Today we come with a different kind of energy. We come remembering the life of my big brother, Coach James Butch Acdams, who transitioned on Sunday before last, and our prayers go out to Butch and his family. He was my big brother, and he gladly owned it. And I was his little brother, and I gladly owned it. And today I'm going to come with just some clips. Coach Butch Acdams was in radio about 30 to 40 years. He served most of his time on Radio 1 stations with Dr. Kathy Hughes, and was an excellent sports commentator. I put Coach up against Stephen A. Smith and any other commentator you can think of. He coached DeMatha, and I'm not going to go into all the background today, but for the next week or two, it's going to be dedicated to a giant. One of the things you'll hear is Coach always mentored me concerning radio etiquette and how to be one of the best media. He went beyond radio because he had a podcast. He did sports. He transitioned into politicians. You'll hear him talk about his relationship with the great Joe Madison, Eric St. James, P.D. Green. I mean, Coach was a stellar media personality. He and I were from the same city, Washington, D.C., and we often shared common memories of Washington, even as Washington is in a great transition. And so I wanted to bring you a clip today in honor of my big brother and the life he lived. There's so many things that I can say Coach did for me, with me, connected me to so many people. And so this podcast today, excuse me if it's different, is dedicated to someone great. He did a morning show in Baltimore in the DMV for probably 20 years with another radio host on WOLB 1010 AM. And one of the things, and you'll hear it on this clip I'm about to play, is that Coach always said what makes great radio is show prep. I learned that from Jeff Majors of Radio 1. And he said, keep people accountable. Maybe that's what you hear when you listen to my audio podcast in my Voice Over Today and Voice Over Now podcast, is that he said, little brother, your job, if you're going to be true to the calling, is to keep those that you interview accountable, and they have a right to disagree, and you have a right to answer their questions. And so I've tried to model the footsteps of the legendary. We have an interview where we'll talk about his relationship with Coach John Thompson of Georgetown and how they were great friends and how they met. Coach invited me to an event with him and then Governor Larry Hogan and introduced me to the governor. This was a stellar of a gentleman. And before I play the clip, one thing I will say is no matter what people would say, Coach would always defend me and take up for me and say, no, I know the real Bishop Darnell Johnson III. And so Coach James Butch Acdams, certainly in all of our lives that knew him, will be missed, but especially in mine. He was a friend, he was a brother, and he was a mentor. I want you to listen to just a little bit of this, and we'll give you some more next week on remembering the life of Coach James Butch Acdams, right here on the Voice Over Today audio podcast.
Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, And during his time, Tim Duncan was one of the top stars in the NBA, San Antonio Spurs, right?
Yes.
So Tim Duncan was a free agent, and people were wondering whether or not he would remain in San Antonio with the Spurs or he would go someplace else, L.A., play for the Lakers, or to Boston and play for the Celtics. Well, Tim Duncan re-signed with San Antonio. Now, the average sports person would have come on the air and said, well, the big story of the day is the big fundamental. Tim Duncan re-signs with the San Antonio Spurs for X number of dollars. What do you think about that? I didn't do that. I said, Tim Duncan re-signs with the San Antonio Spurs, and the main reason he gives, folks, is because his girlfriend lives in San Antonio, or his fiance lives in San Antonio, and wanted him to stay, so he stayed. Okay? But here was the hook. I said, folks, love is love. I want to be clear about this. And it's colorblind. But I got to ask y'all one question. Why is it that so many of the black athletes and celebrities are dating outside of their race? The first guy that called in, I could have paid him, but I didn't. He initiated one of the best shows I have ever conducted. He called in and said, Coach, I can tell you why. Because most of the sisters are gold diggers. And I said, ladies, I can go into them, but I'm going to let y'all have them. You heard what he said? He said the black athlete or the black celebrity dating out of his race because most sisters are gold diggers. And man, my phone stayed lit for 2 hours.
I'm about to say, now that was
so good that there was an individual who was a radio. Her job was to give seminars. Your job, my job, is to hold folks accountable, especially the politicians. Hold them accountable. When they do something correct, you say it. When they do something incorrect, you say that. And don't treat them like they're celebrities. They're not. They're not. And you want to make it so where, hey, you have an open door policy to come on my show, but when you come on, it's more about the people, not you and I. And when I call you out on something, it's not going to be personal, okay? And you will always have an opportunity to come on and disagree and give a rebuttal. But there's a difference, again, between being an assassin and holding one accountable.
Wow.
Okay.
There you have it, my friends, a clip of me interviewing my big brother, Coach James Butch McAdams, and the subject was talking about what makes great radio. We're going to continue this on next week. I should have some arrangements. And the reason I'm putting this out there is because those who listen to this podcast all across the country and world, many are familiar, even if you never met Coach James Butch McAdams, who made his transition on Sunday before last, I think it was, Sunday before last. And I want to say thank you to all of those of you for your love and your support for all that we are doing on the voiceover platform right here on WPBMediaNetworks.com. Don't forget, check out Friday's upload where we continue in We won't denounce the Divine Nine based on the information that we have been given. Until the next Voice Over the Day audio podcast, and to those with the replay, remember, you have a voice. Keep lifting it. Peace.